The second video will highlight the 1970s. The 1970s continued from the 1960s, but would also create its own identity, as you will see in the clips. Number 10. The pace car crash. Generally, the pace car does its job of leading the field before the race and under cautions, but at the start of the 1971 race, it saw more action than anybody was expecting. Local Dodge dealer Eldon Palmer was selected to drive the Dodge Challenger pace car. As he had led a group of Dodge dealers to supply cars for the event, Palmer had practiced driving the car down the pit road by having an orange flag or cone marking the point of deceleration. Although this has been disputed, on race day, Palmer was driving with track owner Tony Hulman, ABC Sports reporter Chris Schenkel, and astronaut John Glenn as passengers. When the pace car pulled down the pit lane, it never slowed down, as there was no marker. Going at over 125 miles per hour, it drove straight into a photographer's stand. 29 people were injured, but nobody was killed. The accident would cause pace car drivers for the next several years to be people with racing experience. Number 9. The final win for the Offenhauser. The Offenhauser engine won 27 Indianapolis 500s during its existence. In 1976, Johnny Rutherford qualified on the pole position and would lead for 48 laps when the race was stopped after 102 laps due to rain. He would be declared the winner. It was unknown at the time, but it would be the final victory for the Offenhauser engine, ending an era at Indy. The engine would continue to appear at the 500 through 1983, but the final time it actually qualified was 1980. Number 8. Team Penske's first win. Team Penske is one of the most successful auto racing teams of all time. They've won 178 IndyCar races, including 16 Indianapolis 500s. Their first win was in 1972 with Mark Donohue, who only led the final 13 laps when leader Jerry Grant had to make a pit stop to replace a punctured tire. The race had been dominated by Donohue's teammate Gary Bittenhausen, who led 138 laps, but he would lose the lead to Grant with 25 laps to go as his car was failing, eventually retiring after 182 laps due to ignition failure. Following the race, second-place finisher Grant's team, All-American Racers, filed a protest to USAC that said that there was a scoring error between the two Penske cars, and Grant was the true winner. The race was reviewed, and it was discovered that Grant had taken fuel from teammate Bobby Unser's pit stall on the last pit stop. This caused Grant's final 12 laps to be void, dropping him from 2nd to 12th place. Number 7. Tony Hulman's final race. It's hard to imagine what the Indianapolis 500 would be like without Tony Hulman. Following World War II, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway sat abandoned, with no race being held there since the 1941 500. Track owner Eddie Rickenbacker planned on selling the track, likely to housing developers who would have torn down the track. Three-time winner Wilbur Shaw heard about this and searched for a buyer who would keep the track open and continue the race. Shaw would find an interested party in Tony Hulman, known for Clabber Girl baking powder. Hulman would purchase the track and would have it ready for the 1946 race. Following the 1977 race, winner A.J. Foyt invited Hulman into the pace car for the victory lap. It would be the first and only time that Hulman was in the pace car for the victory lap. Later that year, on October 27th, Hulman died at the age of 76 due to heart failure. Number 6. The formation of CART. While the Indianapolis 500 was successful, other races in the USAC National Championship were struggling in attendance. Some races weren't even shown on television. In 1978, Dan Gurney wrote what would be called the Gurney White Paper to USAC, and it said that a group of owners would promote the races and hold some membership on the USAC board. They were rejected. At the same time, USAC was severely weakened by the death of Tony Hulman the previous year, and a plane crash earlier that year that killed several top officials. As a result, CART was formed as an independent racing series separate from USAC. At the Indianapolis 500 that year, CART teams would enter cars to compete. However, USAC would reject the entries of Team Penske, Patrick Racing, Team McLaren, Chaparral Cars, Bob Fletcher Racing, and All-American Racers. These teams would request and receive an injunction to compete. CART cars would occupy 8 of the top 10 starting positions, the only exceptions being A.J. Foyt in 6th and Sheldon Kinzer in 10th. CART would also win the race with Penske driver Rick Mears, with Foyt finishing 2nd and Bill Vukovich Jr. in 8th, being the only USAC drivers in the top 10. By 1982, the only IndyCar race USAC was sanctioning was the Indianapolis 500, and CART was established as a major racing series. Number 5, the 1973 race. It would be hard to come up with a worse Indianapolis 500 than 1973. Cars were getting quicker, but the track wasn't being updated to handle the higher speeds. An omen to the race occurred in practice on the morning of pole day, when Art Pollard crashed into the outside wall and then spun and flipped over. When safety crews got to his car, the car was in flames and had extensive damage. Pollard would die an hour later of flame inhalation, burns, and a fractured right arm. During qualifying, Johnny Rutherford set a new one-lap track record of 199.071 miles per hour, 21/100ths of a second off the elusive 200-mile-per-hour barrier, and a new 4-lap track record of 198.413 miles per hour. At the start of the race, Salt Walther and Jerry Grant made contact. Walther would drive over the left front tire on Grant's car and go into the catch fence, spraying fuel on spectators. His car would then go back across the track and cause a chain reaction. In all, 11 cars were involved in the crash and 11 spectators were injured. Walther would suffer burns on 40% of his body and would have to have some of the fingers on his left arm amputated. He would later develop an addiction to painkillers that were given to him after the wreck, and he would have it for most of the rest of his life. The race was scheduled to occur the next day, Tuesday, but rain would come before the cars could get the green flag. The race was finally started on Wednesday, with Bobby Unser moving into the lead. The race would soon become a battle between Gordon Johncock and Swede Savage, teammates at STP Patrick Racing, and Al Unser. On lap 57, Savage made a pit stop from the lead. His car was filled with 70 gallons of fuel. 2 laps later, leader Al Unser began to enter the pit lane. Savage, who was about to move back into the lead, suddenly lost control in turn 4. He would go into the inside wall at nearly full speed. The car would explode into flames as parts of the car were thrown across the track. Savage was still conscious, but in the middle of the flaming methanol fuel. The race was red flagged. Meanwhile, a safety vehicle was driving against traffic down the pit lane, as was the standard procedure at the time. However, 22-year-old Armando Terran, pit boardman for Graham McRae, Johncock and Savage's teammate, was hit by the vehicle and would die shortly after being transported to Methodist Hospital. The race was eventually restarted with Unser continuing to lead. However, attrition would shrink the field, including Unser, who retired after 75 laps due to piston failure. Johncock began to lead uncontested and was leading when the race was called after 133 laps due to rain. Only 12 cars were left running when the race ended, including 26th place Jerry Carl, who was 111 laps down. 33 days following his accident, on July 22nd, Savage passed away at the age of 26 due to complications following the accident. It isn't known what caused Savage's crash, be it wing failure or driver error, or even another option. It also isn't known what caused Savage's death. Dr. Steve Olvey says that it could have been because of contaminated blood, giving Savage hepatitis B, causing liver failure, while family members say that it could have been due to lung failure. Perhaps we will never know. Number 4. Wings on cars. During the latter part of the 1960s, some cars started to sport small wings that were connected to the body. However, the team that truly got wings to take off was Team McLaren. In 1970, Team McLaren began to compete in IndyCar racing. Their car, the McLaren M15, featured a wing just behind the cockpit, but connected to the body. The car did respectable, finishing in 9th place with Carl Williams at the 500, while teammate Peter Revson retired due to magneto failure after 87 laps. The following year, McLaren came out with their M16 chassis for Revson and Denny Hulman, in addition to one that went to Team Penske for Mark Donohue to drive. The car featured a wing on the rear of the car, but still technically considered to the bodywork of the car, as the rules at the time still did not allow the wing to be separate. Revson would qualify in the pole position with a new track record average of 178.696 miles per hour, with Donohue second and Hulman fourth. In the race, Donohue led for 52 of the first 66 laps. However, he would retire on lap 67 with gear issues. Hulman would have valve problems after 137 laps, but was not a factor in the race after spinning on lap 5. Revson would manage to finish in second place. By the following year's race, the entire starting lineup had wings on their cars, which could now be separate from the bodywork. Speeds increased dramatically as a result, with pole sitter Bobby Unser going 195.94 miles per hour for his average, and a best lap of 196.678 miles per hour. The slowest car in the field, Cale Yarborough, had a faster speed than Revson's record pole speed of 1971. Number 3. The first woman qualifier. Today, it isn't unusual to see women in auto racing, including the Indianapolis 500. However, in 1976, it was unheard of. That year, sports car veteran Janet Guthrie was entered by Volstead Enterprises to drive a Volstead 72 Offenhauser. Guthrie would struggle with getting the car up to speed, causing some drivers to doubt her ability. A.J. Foyt would allow Guthrie to practice in one of his backup Coyote 73 Foyt V8s for 4 time laps to show that she could get a car up to speed. Her speeds were much better than what she had done in the Volstead. Ultimately, Guthrie did not make a qualifying attempt in either the Foyt or Volstead car and would fail to qualify. Guthrie would return with Volstead in 1977, driving a more modern Lightning Mark I Offenhauser. Guthrie would successfully qualify on the final day of qualifying with a speed of 188.403 miles per hour and would start in 26th place. Guthrie would have various mechanical problems early in the race and would retire just prior to the halfway point due to timing gear failure, with only 27 laps complete. Guthrie would qualify again in 1978 and 1979, finishing 9th in 1978, the best finish for a woman in a race until 2005, and 34th in 1979. She would also fail to qualify in 1980. Number 2. The 200 mile per hour speed barrier. In the early 1960s, drivers were searching to find the 150 mile per hour speed barrier. Eventually, Parnelli Jones broke it in 1962. The next significant barrier was 200 miles per hour. In 1973, pole sitter Johnny Rutherford had a best lap of 199.071 miles per hour. Following the 1973 race, wing sizes were reduced and pop-off valves were placed on the engine to reduce the boost to about 80 inches of mercury. These changes would reduce the speeds for the next 3 years. By 1977, the track was repaved and speeds increased enough to make 200 miles per hour reachable again. Mario Andretti, A.J. Foyt, and Rutherford would each go over 200 miles per hour in practice. However, in qualifying, Tom Sneva was the first and only driver to break the barrier with a first lap speed of 200.401 miles per hour and a second lap of 200.535 miles per hour. His final 2 laps would drop under the barrier, and his average would be 198.884 miles per hour. Sneva would win his first of 3 pole positions at Indianapolis with the run. The following year, He would be the first driver to have each of their laps go over 200 miles per hour. Number 1. The first four-time winner. In 1967, A.J. Foyt won his third Indianapolis 500 and became tied for the most wins in a race with Louis Meyer, Wilbur Shaw, and Maury Rose. It was his third win in 6 years, and people began to wonder when he would get his fourth win. However, during the next 10 years, he either had bad luck while leading or simply wasn't a factor. In 1977, Foyt qualified in 4th place and was running second to Gordon Johncock in the late stages of the race. Foyt began to close the gap as Johncock was struggling with the heat. After both drivers made their final pit stops, Foyt trailed Johncock by 7 seconds. All of a sudden, Johncock started slowing down due to a broken crankshaft as he completed lap 184. Foyt would take the lead and would be unchallenged for the final 16 laps and would win his record-setting 4th race. The win was also the final one for a car that had its chassis and engine built completely in the United States. The 1970s set some milestones and caused some controversy, but it kept us on the edge of our seats all the way.